Well, today we're going to go over some of the updates in the software, in Blueprinter software. And, Scott is the guy who makes all this happen. He interfaces with our development team. So whenever we have, new software upgrades, it's because Scott has guided them. So you would think Scott would be doing this today, but we're going to kind of get it down to the lowest common denominator. If Dan can understand it and explain it, then we know we've really got it down cold here. So Scott, you jump in if I get some of this stuff wrong here, okay?
You bet.
I think there's two major, maybe two or depending on how you count, two or three major things we're going to cover. The first one is we used to, for 17 years, limit the number of outcomes you could do in preference interview to 10. And that was okay for a lot of companies, but there are some companies that really need more than 10 outcomes for a project scope. So we're going to show you how you can have, 30, I think up to 70 or something. But what's the upper limit, Scott?
90.
90. Okay, good. Okay. Probably won't need those, but we'll show you that. And then we'll also show you how we've made the categories that you can affinitize your outcomes in much, much more powerful, and how you can do analytics based upon that. So those two are kind of tied in together a little bit, not completely, but we've got that to cover. Then the last thing we're going to cover is we always could only do preference interviews, and now we can do preference surveys. I had a couple of teams earlier this year, and they just had, like a lot of contractors, worker contractors they needed to survey. Like it was like almost 300, I think. And these poor people had to use another service like Qualtrics, which is fine. We love Qualtrics. We use it ourselves. But then they had to manually enter all these into the interviews. And so now we've got it all self-contained within Blueprinter. So why don't we do this? Pay close attention so you can correct me when I go off course here, Scott. But let's do a little tour here. I'm going into the demo, Acme Packaging. And as you know, Acme Packaging is a completed project all the way through the market case. And so what I had to do was go in on one of these interviews and put in some additional top picks, just so you can see how to process them, okay? So here we are. We're going to process these top picks. And normally, you've got like dozens and dozens of outcomes that were in all of your discovery interviews. By the way, we're keeping this very informal. So just holler if something isn't clear, or you got a comment, or you want to talk a little bit more, okay? So we'll keep this very informal. So you may remember, you drag these over, you look for duplicates, but if you've got a lot of them, it's really going to be tough to figure out, where I can put these duplicates on top of each other, right? So we came up with these categories, and you can create as many categories as you want. Like you can have one for box durability. This is the packaging example, okay? And you can hit the plus button down here and add more of these categories. And then you go, okay, your recycle content. Let me zoom out of that just a little bit. That sounds like that one might be another category, another one. Damage from tearing sounds like box durability. Water resistance sounds like durability. And then tracking time for boxes, that sounds like a handling one, okay? And so the reason we had these categories before was one reason and one reason only, to make it a little bit more sane when you were getting rid of duplicates. So you go into box durability, damage from tears. Let's see, there it is right here. I could put it on the top, or I could put it on the bottom of the stack. Let's see, water resistance. I'll put that on the bottom of the stack over here. On moisture resistance. Can always open up the stack, see what's in there, and I can promote things or send them back to staging, or I can delete them. And so that's always been the case. Now, what's different is we got these little cute little labels, color labels here, because as you'll see in a little bit, whereas the categories only serve one purpose, that was to make the duplication elimination manageable. We're going to use it a little bit later for analysis. So let me just take a breath. Any questions so far on this first step, which isn't any different, except it's got those colored icons that makes us wonder what's going to happen. Okay, so now we hit the next. And as you may remember, a good way of doing this is to have your whole team together and let them each vote for their 7 favorites. By the way, that little 7 up there and that 6 here, that just is how thick the stack is. That's how many duplicates there were, okay? Came up a lot during some of these interviews. And then you let everybody vote silently and then say, okay, team, how many voted for number 1? Oh, we have 6 votes. How many voted for number 2? Okay, 5 votes. It's a way of avoiding groupthink. Let everybody think separately. So that's step 2, collect the votes. And then we hit the blue button. And these are all gray. And then what you do as a team is you decide what's in and what's out. Yeah, that one's in. Maybe for this reason, maybe we can't do anything with this. So we decide to leave it out. And that one's in. And we got a little counter over here. And if we go beyond 10, oh, it's warning us, it's flashing at us. What did I do wrong? Oh, I went beyond 10. Now that's the way it always worked, okay? But now with the upgrade, we can do more than 10. It doesn't matter if it's flashing at you or not, you can keep going. But we now have some recommendations over here for you. This is Scott's idea. It's very clever. So if you're only going to have 1 hour with your customers, you're obviously going to do the outcome rating. That's why that gray check mark you can't undo, okay? But maybe you don't want to do all the parts of this interview. If that's the case, you could probably get more outcomes in. If you're just going to do the rating, how do you measure it, and do you like our must-haves? Conversely, if you have more, let's go ahead and put those back in. Let's say you have more time that you think you can have with the customers. Once again, you can have more outcomes. Now, our advice is don't just load up a lot of outcomes because you can, right? Keep it crisp. You want to have enough time to discuss these, so don't go overboard. But there have been a number of cases, personally, when I've worked with teams, where I wish I could be in that 10 to 15 range. And Scott, you've had cases probably where you wanted to go over that. Is that a safe thing to say?
For sure. Yep.
Yeah. So at any rate, now we can go over. We could go up to, if you go on 3-hour interviews, you can really do a lot. But for our purposes, we're going to leave this at 10. Doesn't really matter at this point. So now we go to define the outcome. And here we will clean these up. If we have extra stuff on the sticky notes, we're going to get rid of it. We don't need it here. It won't hurt the sticky note, anything earlier. We're going to get our nice, crisp 20 character or less outcome name. These become the labels on our charts. Then we double check, are these really the right categories we want? If we want new ones, we can go back and hit that plus sign and add new ones. And this is so we can do some analysis later on this thing, okay? So I'm going to hit the done button here. Any questions on that part? So far, the only thing we've done so far is tell you there are cool little icons, by the categories, and you can have more than 10. So far, so good? Okay.
Dan,
yeah, please.
The 10, though, are applicable to all the customers that you will interview.
That's correct. So thank you for that clarification. That process I just went through, doesn't matter if we did 5 discovery interviews or 20 discovery interviews, that area over on the left that I was dragging things from, the staging area, that had all of the top picks from all of our discovery interviews. Now, if it wasn't a top pick, it won't make it to that staging area. So we're only looking at things that at least one customer on one interview said this is a top pick. And then we usually have a lot of duplicates, and that's what we were processing.
Okay, so I'm going back to the Excel version, and within there was also the opportunity to add customer specific top picks.
Mm-hmm.
How would you do that here?
Yes, so you can do that in the discovery interview. You can go ahead and you can add in some of those top picks there. and then flow those all the way through, just like you could in Excel. Yep. So that's where you would do it. All the top picks get created back in that stage there.
All right.
And then, since you're remembering Excel, let me just do this. Let's just make sure we catch everybody up here. When you do your preference interview, that now in this software looks like this. And so what you would do is say, let me blow that up a little bit. How important is it to minimize the likelihood of box damage from moisture? Oh, they say that's very important. Hit the next button. And how satisfied are you with your ability to do this? And so this is how we can go through and do these. Now, if you've got one that's got a lot of these will all show up. In fact, why don't I do this? Scott, tell me if this is a bad idea, but I'm going to go to your hydraulic demo. Does that make sense at this point?
Sure.
Okay. I don't know it as well, so you maybe have to guide me here if I get some things wrong. But let's go to the preference interviews for this one, and we'll grab one of these. Now look at, you can have a lot of outcome. We got a 30 in here, I think, Scott.
That sounds right.
Yeah. And you can also jump around on these things. Okay. So you can go here. When you hit the done button in any of these, it gives you a chance to look these all over. So we now have these color coded and so forth, so you can move them around and so on and so forth. And it'll light up the ones down below that you're on. So you probably won't have too many projects with 30, but you could do that if you wanted to. Now, let's go to the analytics now. And so when you're analyzing the data, here you can look at all interviews. You're looking at standard deviations. You can divide this up into different market views. Let me back up a second here. These are market views you create. And what you do is you decide which respondents you want to get through. Now, notice surveys are going to come in here. So you can do all interviews or surveys. And then these were some of the factors that were set up, some of the settings, okay? And different value chain positions, customers, end user, and so forth. So there's a lot of these you can set up. And then depending upon what you select, you can now pick different, if you go with this, you could actually say, I just want to get this for manufacturers, and I just want to do it for this grouping right here, mid ZTR, yada, 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 okay? So you get to decide what these market views are. Now, when you come over here, you're looking at the standard deviations. You can check out any of these market views up above when you do this, okay? And then this is where it gets a little bit more fun. You can look at a bubble chart, okay? So we'll do the 1 to 10 bubble chart here. And here are all the outcomes that you can now look at on this. Now, one of the upgrades is you could look at these by outcome, but you can also look at it by category. So let's click the category button here. Now you see these are the categories Scott set up on this project. Remember way back when we were sorting the Acme packaging one, you had the ability to, box durability. Well, those were the categories. And these are the categories set up for this project. And so now you can see where everything is at. And you can, if you want to, just pick one of these, like using the mower. Boy, there's a lot up there in using the mower, okay? Or factory quality. And that's not going to be too exciting. They don't think that's very important. So you're starting to see these categories and how they all stack up. Now, if I do this, I can hit view all again. So that's my bubble chart. Now let's look at the market satisfaction gap chart. It will always default the way it used to, which is the outcome. And this is the most important, warranty claim time. And this is the least important. But the market satisfaction gap doesn't just look at importance. It looks at importance and satisfaction. So if something was very important, but it has a low gap, that means that they must be pretty satisfied with it already, right? So, because it's importance times 10 minus satisfaction. So sometimes it's kind of fun to sort these by market satisfaction gap. That is a new feature you have. Now, this is where I think it gets kind of interesting. I can also sort these by categories. So now look at this. Whoa, man, look at this. Using the mower has got some big orange bars here. So if Scott and I work for this hydraulic pump company, and we wanted to sell more hydraulic pumps to this market for zero turn radius mowers, we would probably work on something that really helps some of these using the mower factors here: housing cracks, cavitation, efficiency loss, hydraulic leaks. Then when we went to the zero turn radius mower manufacturer, we'd say, boy, we can really help you create a mower that makes it easier to use. And you'll be able to promote this to your market, saying, looky here, this is a really easy to use mower for all these reasons. So that's how we can use these categories. So let me pause for a second. Questions on this at all? Excuse me. So what have we covered so far? We've got, basically, we've got the ability to use more than 10 outcomes. And the categories are now more useful than just helping us sort all the TPs. They're also helpful on the analysis phase of things. Okay, well, then let's do this. Got one more thing I want to show you. I'm just going to go back to the Acme packaging because I'm a little more familiar with this. But here's where I could get in trouble, and Scott can bail me out. So up till now, this conduct preference survey was in gray, which means it was not active, okay? But it is active now. So now I'm going to click on this, and I'm going to open, this is a finished project, so I need to open survey. Yeah, okay, good. So now the survey's open. And here, if you already had a topic statement for your interviews, you could put that in here. Possible innovations for e-commerce packaging. Okay, good enough. Then here's some survey instructions. These will be things that will show up in your survey. And Scott, tell me if I'm wrong on this, but even if you leave this blank, it's still pretty workable, I think, isn't it?
What do you mean if you leave it blank?
These survey instructions, this is what they're going to, the survey respondents. But I think it's still fairly intuitive, even without the niceties here, isn't it?
Agree. Yeah, it's just something that's just something that introduces the survey taker to give them a little.
Yeah. Okay, and then here, does the respondent have to say who they are? It's up to you. Does a respondent have to give their email? It's up to you. But you may want to put some message like, please give it to us so we can send you the gift card, for doing this, or put you in a drawing, whatever it might be. So then here, make sure the respondents know how to select a choice for each. So you remember the settings that we had established way back earlier when you were doing your interviews and your settings? You had a place for these different regions, value chain position, package size. Remember that? If you don't, let me go back here. It was way back here in settings when you were getting ready to interview people. Well, it remembers all of those settings. And when you take a survey, there's usually qualifying questions like, where do you live? How old are you? Male or female? Those are qualifying questions. So later on, they can see if people in Ohio want different things than people in Arkansas, okay? Or old people want different things than young people. So you've got those qualifying questions right in here. So if I come back to the survey, if you want to change these, wouldn't they go back? Would they change them? Yeah, they can change them right here, can't they?
No, they have to go back.
They have to go back. Okay, that's good. All right. So we probably should put a note to tell them that to go back. But at any rate, that's what they would do is go back. Okay. And then this is what your email looks like. Here's the subject line of your email. We'd like your views on yada, yada, yada. Would you please take, and you can put a number of minutes to take the survey, then click here to begin. And this is what we would send out to people. And let's go ahead and let's do it here. Let's send the survey Well, maybe I won't. Yeah, I'll show you what it looks like and I'll cancel it here. I can keep that. Now my Outlook opens up and I can simply put in, probably in the BCC line, all the people I want to send this to. Or if you've got another way of sending it out, just copy and paste this and send it out to people. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just go to the preview. And so let's do preview survey. And now this is what it looks like. Remember there were some niceties. This is what shows up in here, okay? And then begin survey. And here, I'll just go ahead and I'll do this so you can see what it looks like. And I'll say I'm a box producer, and we make all kinds of boxes here. And I'm going to put my name in. I guess I don't have to. I'll leave that go. And then we'll hit optional, or next rather. Oops, I didn't put my name in. Okay, so we'll go aim. All right, missed that. Okay, hit next. And now we've got the preference survey. And so it's set up just like, the interview. You go ahead and you put your numbers in here, and it's exactly the same definitions that we had in the preference interview. So we go through these. Oops. Here, and then we go through these. Next part, we're going to do are satisfied. So then we fill these in. It's pretty straightforward, not a lot to it. Is there anything else on this? And I'm going to be done in just a minute, aren't I, Scott?
You are, yeah.
Okay, all right. So we do that, and then they submit it, and it says thank you, and that's really it. But so again, we like Qualtrics. We use it for a lot of our research. But the thing is, if you use a third-party survey system, very powerful, but now how do you get all that data back in? Basically, what we were doing was going to the interviews and manually entering it. Now all that data will be captured in here. And so if I go to the analyze, and I'm looking at some of these, notice it shows how many interviews. Look up here, it's maybe hard to see. It says there were 9 interviews and there were 2 surveys done here on this thing. And so that's basically, how we can check out the data. So if I go here, it shows all of that. But if I wanted to, I could go into this, all interviews. And the all interviews is kind of static, isn't it? But I could go into the edit view here. And if I wanted to, I could do this just for interviews or just for surveys. So basically, tell me if I got this wrong, Scott. If I wanted to do a market view, if I wanted to look at just the survey respondents, I would create a market view for that. Like I could probably create one. Let's check this out. Plus market view. I could do everything except I could do surveys, and then surveys only. Is that just that simple?
Exactly. Yep.
Okay. So now when I'm going across here, I've got one just for the surveys only. Okay. I guess it was only one survey. All right. So that's it for the surveys. Questions at all anybody has on either of these? The new categories, the ability to go beyond 10, or the surveys? I'll stop sharing for a minute here and we'll see if anybody has any questions.
Yeah, I do have a question.
Yes.
Gudula here. One is like what you showed in the preview mode that was for desktop use. How does that look on a cell phone? Because most of our customers only use cell phones.
Yes. Great question. It was designed for a cell phone. It looks really nice. I don't have the ability to show it. I don't think it displays in here, does it, Scott? Like Qualtrics,
Right.
It shows you the.
Right.
But it's really nice. Yeah, we absolutely designed it for cell phone, tablets, and desktops in terms of the respondents.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, that's good. Yeah, you're right. People more and more. I just want to answer very quickly. Is it look any different, Scott? I remember seeing it. I think the difference is it takes you through one at a time because your screen
That's
is
right.
smaller. Isn't that right?
It looks better in some ways.
I think it, I remember, I think it
Yeah.
does as well. Yeah. Yep.
Mhm.
So pretty easy to use for people. Yeah. Good. Other questions?
Hi, Dan and Scott, Joanna here.
Yes.
So when you take the preference survey and you get the the survey results about the importance and the satisfaction
Mhm.
on the main chart, are you able to decipher what was from an interview versus what answers were from the survey? Just
Great,
thinking out
great.
loud.
Here's what I think. I think the way to do it, Scott, you jump in if I got it wrong. I think what I would do on that, Joanna, is I would set up a market view called just surveys.
Surveys. Mhm.
Yeah. And then I would do this. I would go in and I would create one and I'd call it interviews only. Okay. And then I would come back here. And then what I would do is I would jump in here. I'll go here. And then I can compare the surveys only. Let's do a bubble chart here. Oh, wow. I guess I must have been testing this. Surveys only, the interviews only. Okay. We only had one. I guess we were just testing it. But here's
Okay.
a part that I think is very valuable. What I would do then is I would export this to PowerPoint. Okay. Now, what I would do is I would do the all interviews, surveys, interviews only. And just for grins, I'm going to only do the bubble chart and the market satisfaction gap charts. Okay.
Okay.
Then I'm going to hit the export here. And I really like the PowerPoint export feature on this because it lets you create almost like a little movie. Let me show you what I mean by this. Okay. So we'll bring this PowerPoint up. And what I like to do now, you know me, I'm a little bit of a showman. So what I like to do is I like to put the bubble charts together and the market satisfaction gap charts together. And then when I'm presenting, I like to be able to say, okay, folks, here's the responses we got for all interviews. Here's what we got for the interviews only. And here's what we got for the surveys. And then
Got
I
it.
can also do this. Here's the market satisfaction gap, surveys only, and interviews only. And I can go back and forth, It's kind of nice. It's a neat way of kind of showing people what's happening here. So does that help, Joanna?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. You bet. Great question. Other questions anybody has?
Hey Dan, it's Andy here.
Yes, Andy.
Just a question on that. Looking at the comparison for the satisfaction gaps, can you actually amalgamate previous discovery and preference interviews, say done a year or two ago, and current ones, and can you then have a look and see if there's been a shift in that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can. Let's think, Scott, help me think this through a little bit. Here's what I would do, Andy. I would create a brand new project, okay? Let me just get out of here for a second. Back out of here. I think what I would do is I go back to my projects and I would create a whole new project, okay? And then what I would do is I would use the search function and I would go here searching. And then if I had another project, I would find that project in here. Let's say it's the bridge coatings project here. And then what I would do is I would probably take all the interviews and all the sticky notes from that entire project. So I would grab everything like this, okay? And then what I would do is I would go ahead and basically import into a new, I'd call this the bridge coatings project, okay? And I import that rascal. And then what I would do is I would go here to this, and lo and behold, there's my bridge coatings project. And it brought over all, 56 or something of these things, like, And so now I've got all these in here with the topics. Now it came over gray. Gray means it's been cloaked. And the reason is when you start using this search function, you don't want it to look like an original every time, because you'll do sometime down the road, years from now, somebody will find this. It'll be like the 20th person that found it, and so it's come up 20 times. So only the original comes up in a search. But for our purposes, it's great. We've got this in here. And so if I did this, let's say these were the 5-year-old interviews that I had pulled up, okay? I would go ahead, and Scott, you can help me with this a little bit, but I would probably put in like a little, note on these things, on these. So I knew these were old. There may be a slicker way of doing this. And then when I get to go ahead and just do one more here. Okay. Then when I get to my data analysis, here we go. Again, this is a finished project. Okay. What I'm going to do is, I guess I never got out of here. You see now what it did, it brought over all of those top picks that were in that interview, okay? And what I'll probably do is create a category called old. And then put the ones that have old on it in here. Does that make sense to you too, Scott? Or is there a better way of doing that?
I wasn't 100% sure what the question was, or what he was trying to accomplish.
Well, he's saying, what if he did a bunch of interviews 5 years ago, and he's doing interviews now, and he wants to compare? Is that right, Andy?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we did some interviews, like you say, 5 years ago, and I want to compare what the current thought is in comparison to 5 years ago and see what the shift needs were.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So that's what I think I would do that way. And then I can go ahead and I could group those together. I might create, I got this old category here. I think that's probably the way to do that. And then when you do your analysis, you could look at it that way. Does that make sense then?
Yeah, no, it's something that we need to look at possibly. Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
One thing you could do, if you could spare one of the settings, there's only 3. If you could spare one, you could take settings and call it one. So instead of region, time frame, whatever, and then you could have old and new instead, or package size. So time frame, whatever. So, and then under there, so put old.
Oh, right, sorry, there. Time frame. Yeah, right.
Up there, like put time frame or something like that.
Yeah, you're right.
Instead of mixed, to put
5 years ago,
5 years, 10 years ago, and today.
Yeah, today.
And then you would have to sort of code. You would have to. I have to think about this a second. You would have to. Anyway, I haven't thought.
You know what?
Entirely.
Actually, you know what? I didn't do it quite right. I think what I should have done is this. I'm sorry. Let me back up a second. Tell me if this is right, Scott.
Because what you want to do is you want to look at your data analysis and be able to see them. How the scores change.
You need to do it by interview. So notice I brought in all projects. I goofed on that. What I should have done, or I picked out one project, Bridge Coatings. Then what I should have done is I should have brought in one interview at a time. Okay. And then that interview, let's say the Bridge Coatings, a quality painting company. Okay, here we go. I went the wrong way on this. So I picked a different project and I picked a specific company from this old project. Okay. Now I bring this over and I let it be called Bridge and it's a quality painting company. Okay. Now we bring this over, and now this is Scott's point here. We've got the 5 years ago and the today, and now this company here, I'm going to make that a 5 years ago company. Okay, and so now when I'm doing the analysis here, I didn't finish it. It's unhappy with me. It's often unhappy with me. Okay, there we go. Now, when I'm doing this, I'm going to create a market view for old 5 years ago. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is on the time frame, I'm going to pick just the 5 years ago ones. It was a little bit garbaged up the way that I did this. But now do you see how if I do this, now I can have a market view for today, and all of the companies that we interviewed 5 years ago will be in there as separate entries. And so we can now compare their results to other results. Thanks, Scott. I was on the wrong track there at first. Does that make sense, Andy? We kind of went quickly, and I tried to make it as confusing as I possibly could.
Yeah, yeah, sure. Yeah, no, I just wanted a way to do it like that so we could compare directly.
Yeah, and then the fun thing is you can do what Joanne and I were doing, which is say, here's the bubble chart for today, here's the bubble chart for 5 years ago, here's the market satisfaction, you know what I'm saying? And it's kind of, it'd be kind of a cool way of doing your analysis, actually.
Thank you.
Great question. That was an advanced one. Or at least I made it advanced. Other questions on this?
It's
All
Mark
right.
again. I just want to come back to my earlier question about interviewing the top 10 outcomes and how to add an additional one on the fly. So you demonstrated
Mhm.
with the preference interview, you know,
I see.
for your Acme model, you had the 10 listed in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what I'm wondering about is that as you get to the end of the 10,
Mhm.
and I've done this in the past, then we ask, you know, the customer, are there any additional
Yeah.
top picks
Yeah.
that you'd like to score on?
Yeah.
That is just pertinent to them,
Yes.
most of the market. And
I
wondering
see.
how you can add that on the fly. during the-
Okay. Thank you. I apologize. I was thinking you meant add them into your set for everybody. Okay, absolutely. Thank you. So yes, so what you'll do is in the interview, you're going through these ratings here.
Yeah.
And when you get near the bottom of this thing, you'll see this done button, okay? And there's really an option to do two things at this point. The first one is to say, do you guys like where these are at, or should we move these? Which I think is valuable, because sometimes when they see where things are relative to each other, they want to change them. That's the first thing. But the second thing is the one you're referring to. Are there any other important outcomes we didn't already rank? And so here is where you would say it's very important to minimize fading from UV, okay? And then you might call it UV fading. And then you'll hit save. And then you'll get their ratings on that. And you can add as many of these as you want. Now, notice it's down here. Now, the way this works, you know, they might be the only person, the only company that asks for UV fading. So if maybe you go out in the first 2 or 3 companies, say, yeah, you need to talk about UV fading, or maybe it's such a good idea, you go, man, I want everybody to, you know, answer on UV fading. Correct me if I'm wrong, Scott, but then you would go back to your preparation here, and you would go ahead and you could always hit add and make UV fade, you know, minimize UV fading, and then you'd go through with that. Oops, there we go. And then you would make sure you grabbed this one on your list, and then yeah, and then you'd come down here and you'd give it, you know, minimize UV fading and give it maybe a durability issue or something, and then you're good. And then from then on, the rest of your customers, let's go Federal Express. I think this will work. Let's see. And if you want to, you can just jump down here and go, yeah, there it is, minimize. Yeah, so you would have it for the rest of the people. Now, this is interesting. I'm really glad you brought this up because you know what we used to tell people? We used to tell people, go back and eliminate one of your 10 and put the new one in when we did it in Excel, remember? Because we only had 10. So now instead of going back and eliminating a weak one, you just add another one on. So yeah, I think that's a
Okay.
lot better.
Yeah,
Thanks. That kind of cleared my thinking up too, Mark.
no, I appreciate it. I mean, it's as I said, it's something we did on a couple of interviews with the older version on there. If you just come back to this example though, you had up on the
Yeah.
screen.
Yeah. Yes.
Now,
This
if
one.
you export to PDF,
Yeah. Yeah. Export to PDF. Let's do that right now. It's cooking. Okay. There we go. Yes.
all right. So here's my grief.
Okay. All right.
And I think I flagged this in a message earlier when we were doing discovery interviews. We only see the moderator listed at the top. We don't seem to have all the participants listed at the
Oh,
top.
that's right. Yeah, we really should have. Your preference would be to have the Acme packaging team and the customer, the Federal Express team, even if it didn't say who the moderator was, right?
Yeah.
Maybe Acme packaging and put the names, and then Federal Express and put the names. Would that work?
Well, that's what we were hoping that this would do automatically. And we're just
Yeah, exactly.
how to do it with the discovery interview. So
Yeah, I'm kind of, Scott, you're probably writing this down right now. Scott keeps a Trello board of all the improvements. And I'm thinking we probably don't need this, but probably just say preference meeting held April 10th. And then down below, say Acme Packaging : put the names, Federal Express : put the names. So you got that, Scott? Just say preference meeting April 10th on the subline, subtitle, and then two more subtitles. One would say Acme Packaging : and it'd have all the participants from Acme. And underneath it would say Federal Express : and have all the participants. Yeah, it's a great point. I love it, Mark. Sorry we missed that earlier. It's very likely it's in our to-do list, but it's a very long to-do list.
sure. Appreciate that.
Scott, any questions on that? Or are you good?
Nope, it's pretty clear.
Okay, great suggestion. We tell people regularly, if anybody says they like our software, we tell them, well, our job is just to show up and pay attention because the software was pretty much created by our clients with good suggestions. So thank you for that. Okay, other observations or questions or suggestions?
Hey, Dan and Scott.
Yeah, hey, Zach.
Thanks for putting this on. So you were pulling up 3 different bubble charts when you were comparing it in the PowerPoint, and I noticed that the preference or the items were in the same order in all 3. So it looks like that's been a fix, right? That to get them where you can compare apples to apples on the colors of the bubble chart. How did you do that, or is that automatic now?
Oh, good. Yeah, and Scott, you may need to help me with that. Let's go back there and let's take a look to make sure I'm with you, okay? But let's get back. We're back in let's get out of here. And we're doing the analysis on this. I think this is what maybe, well, a couple of things. Let's go to the bubble chart, right, Zach?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So on the bubble chart, we now have the ability to, or was it the markets? Well, I'll just mention it. So we have the outcomes that you can sort by. You can also sort by the category here. Was it the order you were? Ask me one more time because I'm not sure I followed.
So I see moisture damage, recycled content, and vertical crushing.
Yes.
In that order, and then I think when you click on the other categories at the top, that order remains. Or I'm sorry, like you click on Asia e-retailers.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So okay, I know where you're going on this. What's happening is that order is always by the most important descending. So if we looked at all the 1 to 10 ratings for all of the for all of the interviews or all of the market cases or market views, sorry. If we looked at all of these, in fact, let's do this. This will be more clear if I do it this way. So notice, and when this is the default sort is by importance. So it's got box punctures, moisture damage, going like this. So it will keep, oh no, that's right, because it changes from 1 to 1. So, okay, maybe I have to ask Scott this. You're right. I do remember now, we were frustrated because when you would go from different market views to market views, these bubbles were bouncing around. Good for you, Zach. That's great. Yeah, I do remember. Remember this, Scott? We noticed it. It was frustrating because number 1 on North America was not the same as number 1 in Asia before because it was going with the old importance at the top. So how do we lock that down, Scott? So that what is number 1? Why is number 1 always moisture damage? Is that because it's the most, well, I don't know. I'll let you answer that. Oh, you may be on mute, Scott.
I was gonna say, I just think that's the order the outcomes were put in 3.2.
You're right. So we instead, okay, that's it, Zach. So it used to be, as you recall, that all the charts would rank from most important to least important, which meant that if that most important changed from market view to market view, the numbers changed. And I do remember us noticing it drove us crazy on the bubble chart because number 1 wasn't always number 1. So if you export it to PowerPoint, it was really difficult because number 1 was always different.
That's
so
just a legend. That's just a legend. That's only a legend.
It's a legend. So when we're in here, it's organized by importance or by satisfaction score. When we're in the market satisfaction gap, it's organized by most important outcome. Most important or market satisfaction gap. But we're in the bubble chart, it's organized by how they were created way back in step 3.2. Boy, Zach, such a simple question. It took me so long to answer.
Yeah, the numbers,
good.
that's
So
just the
basically,
legend. The legend order doesn't change.
Yeah.
I guess if we're comparing, we just need to make sure we're comparing on the bubble charts.
Exactly.
Or taking notice of the change in order.
Yeah, because if you can compare the market satisfaction gaps, but you're absolutely right. The order of those changes, as you go through it.
Got it. Cool. Thanks.
Yeah, great. Very good. Excellent. Other questions? Well, we got more coming for you. The next time we get together, Scott, it could be several months when we have the next major upgrade. We've got some really cool stuff on how to integrate with StageGate. We've got our good friend Colin Palumbo on the line. Hi, Colin. Colin and Scott and I last year wrote an ebook on, hey, there you go, on how to integrate the front end, like blueprinting, with the StageGate process. And Collins is one of the managing partners at StageGate International, which was founded by Bob Cooper, the father of StageGate. And so great insights in that ebook. So thank you for that, Colin. But the thing is, what we want to do is get blueprinting data more ready to move into everybody's StageGate process. So we've got some pretty cool charts that are going to be developed. You guys maybe remember the executive dashboard. Executive dashboard is where your executives can go and they can see a portfolio of projects. Well, there'll be a pretty neat portfolio of bubble charts talking about opportunity quality and execution quality, where you can really analyze that a lot and then move that into your StageGate process. And let me just say, well, Colin's here. If you are working on your StageGate process and you have questions and you want to get like the world's guru answering the questions, reach out to Colin. If you don't have his email, reach out to Scott or me and we'll connect you guys, okay? All right. Well, any other questions anybody has? It doesn't have to be with software updates, although those are good ones. Everybody good? Great. Well, listen, thanks a lot. we'll be back in a few more months with the next round of major updates. And I know this is hard to believe, but we are getting close to designing steps 4 through 7. Now, when I say designing, I've put together the initial design, and Scott and I and our graphic designer will go over it. And then we got to get it to our software people. So I don't think we'll see anything before the end of this year, but who knows? But at least we are seriously working on steps 4 through 7, side-by-side testing and all that other stuff. It's going to be pretty darn cool. So at any rate, stay tuned and we'll let you know how that's going as well, okay?